Have you ever wondered how to make New Haven style coal-fired pizza? Well, in this video, I'm gonna be working with our executive chef, Zac, and he's gonna be walking us through step-by-step how we make our dough, and then we'll finish off by making a New Haven style pizza in our coal-fired oven. All right, you ready? Let's head inside the kitchen. Hey guys, we're at our coal-fired pizza restaurant, Lenny's today. I'm here with Zac, and we're gonna be making a batch of our dough, and we'll be giving you the amounts if you wanna try making this dough at home. So Zac, what temperature do we cook our pizzas at, and what would they need to be at to be able to do this type of dough at home?
If you're doing like a home oven, I would almost max it out. Here we cook at about 670 to 700 degrees is our goal. So yeah, that's gonna give you your crispy bottom and your nice edges. All right, so first step, we're gonna add 7 ounces of kosher salt. You're gonna take your 7 ounces of salt, you're gonna add it to some cold water. It's important that your water is cold so your dough doesn't get too warm and kind of messes with the fermentation process.
So temperature is like pretty critical on
Super
everything.
critical, yeah. If it's too hot, if you're using like a warmer water, you're gonna make that yeast activate a lot quicker, and it's just gonna turn your dough really mushy real quick.
How precise does the water amount have to be?
It's super important. Consistency is crucial, especially when you're doing anything with baking or dough recipes. So I'm shooting for exactly 7.5 liters on the dot. All right, so it's super important you're dissolving the salt well into the water. So the thing about salt and yeast, they do not mix well, and it can cause issues in the process. Second step, we're gonna toss a 25-pound bag of flour. To be specific, this is our gold medal all trumps high gluten flour.
Is that type of flour really important, or can someone else use a different?
Super important. I would definitely not use an all-purpose flour. A bread flour works well with this too. So we're not gonna add our yeast just yet. That's gonna be your very last step. So now we just have the salt water and flour. So I shoot for about 10 minutes-ish. 12 will be okay, but if you go too long, it's just gonna warm the dough up too much. All right, so we do about 4 teaspoons on the dot of yeast. It's our instant yeast. So it's important that you let the salt water and the flour mix for a bit before you add in the yeast. Again, going back to just salt and yeast do not combine well. It can cause issues in the process. So give it about a minute. I would suggest definitely using a mixer of some sort. Doing it by hand, I mean, you're gonna have to knead this thing for 30 minutes or so just to get a proper consistency. All right, so I'm temping the dough out. Something I'm looking for is to not get this too hot. If you get close to 80 degrees, I'd say no more than 78 degrees. It's just gonna make the yeast activate a lot quicker and cause the dough to go bad a lot quicker. So you're gonna wanna avoid using gloves for this process, because what's gonna happen is your gloves are just gonna get pinched and you're gonna end up with black chunks of gloves in your pizza dough. So I always like to spray the scale that I'm using to weigh out the dough, just to avoid a mess. Here at Lenny's, we shoot for 9.5 ounce dough balls, which for us ends up being about a 14-inch pie. So as I'm forming this, I'm kind of bringing all of my edges to the same spot to kind of create a nice round ball on the outer side, and then pinching as I get there. So then you end up with a nice smooth surface. So another thing I always do is spray my proofing container, which again is just gonna make your life easier as you're grabbing the dough out of here. So something else is when you're grabbing this out of here after it has proofed for about 48 to 72 hours, you're gonna wanna use a spatula of some sort to kind of pull it out of there and maintain the circular shape. So going into that is another important step, to space out your pizza dough. After it's proofed, it's gonna be a lot bigger and stretched out. So what you're gonna do is go in here at a perfect angle and kind of lift it up with your spatula and then continue to grab it. If you just kind of go in here and grab it, you're gonna make a messed up shape. So we do a cold fermentation, which means we basically just leave this dough in a walk-in cooler for about 48 to 72 hours. And that works well for us. So if you do it too long, the dough is gonna kind of get really mushy, really hard to work with, and also it's gonna be really floppy after you cook it. So, and then as you're going into pizza night at home, you're gonna wanna make sure you're allowing your dough to sit out at room temperature from your cooler for I'd say about an hour to an hour and a half before it goes into the oven. So this dough recipe is super simple. 4 ingredients again, water, salt, flour, and yeast. We use instant yeast.
All right, so now we're on our pizza line. We're not gonna cook a pizza today because we're closed on Mondays, but we're gonna walk you through our process of how we do it. And then if you want to see us making coal-fired pizza, you can click this link and check out one of those videos.
All right, so typically on a normal night, we would have about 5 or 6 of our proofing boxes with the dough in it right here. We'd have our flour station set up right here with our flour bowl, which the dough comes straight into. So then after we got our dough ball coming out of the flour, we kind of do a nice pressing motion and then roll it out with our roller. And then we'll kind of slide it over to our pizza guy who's gonna start assembling the pie. From there, the pie assembler is going to put the pizza in. As it cooks, they're gonna spin it and eventually slide it over to our coal-fired side. And at this point, you're gonna have your rolling guy kind of pull it out. As the pie comes out of the oven, we're gonna put it straight onto a cooling rack, which is going to limit the flop and allow the crispy edge or the crispy bottom to stay consistent. Typically I go for about, I'd say at minimum 15-20 seconds. Obviously 30 seconds is a little better. And then you're gonna just slide it onto a tray and start slicing it up.
All right, so now we're done in the kitchen and we're gonna go through our dough recipe and we're gonna price out each ingredient so you can see what an ideal food cost is for New Haven style pizza. Okay, so the first ingredient is a 25-pound bag of flour, which comes in at a little under $12 a bag. 4 teaspoons of instant dry yeast comes out to 16 cents, and 7 ounces of salt costs right around $1. The only other ingredient is water, which costs next to nothing. And this recipe is gonna produce 63 9.5-ounce dough balls, which is good for a 14-inch pie. And the cost per dough ball is 21 cents. Now, some pizza restaurants will buy frozen dough balls or they'll have a bakery make them for them. Now, this is much more expensive. If you can make the dough balls yourself, it's gonna be much more cost effective. For a basic cheese pizza, you're gonna use about 4 ounces of tomato sauce, which might come out to 25 cents. And if you're using 7 ounces of whole milk mozzarella, that's gonna cost about $1.50. So if you're charging $16 for a basic 14-inch cheese pizza, that's gonna cost you right around $1.92 a piece, which is gonna come out to right around 12% food cost. Now, this is obviously a really good food cost. In most restaurants, you have other items that you're selling. You're gonna have a lot of proteins, other entrees, appetizers that are gonna be nowhere near 12%. So we would on average run around 23% food cost at this restaurant, which is still really good. Now, if you can do enough volume to pay your fixed costs, pizza restaurants can be a really profitable concept. If you wanna try making this type of pizza at home, just divide our recipe by 5, and that's gonna produce right around 12 9.5-ounce dough balls. If you want your pizzas to be smaller than 14 inches, this recipe is gonna give you even more than 12 dough balls. If you found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button, as we'll be sharing more information in the future on how we do things in our kitchen so you can apply it to your home cooking. Thanks for watching.